Hort.
Yeah.
How's everyone doing? Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
I'm Ray Felix, and this is Julian Voloj. For the first time ever, legendary photographer and videographer Clayton Patterson, who Anthony Bourdain described as the archivist of all things Lower East Side, is the subject of a biographical graphic novel. It's my Bronx accent. Anthology. Like no other, Clayton has documented the often overlooked people and cultural contributions of New York's Lower East Side, sometimes finding himself in perilous situations as a result. For decades, Clayton has, as his friend, you gotta say that for me, Ai Weiwei, puts it, relentlessly devoted himself to the kind of culture that examines authority. Best known for his documentation of the Tompkins Square riots in 1988. I remember that.
Please rise.
Clayton lived at the intersection of numerous underground cultures, from drag queens to punks, gangbangers to tattoo artists, breathing in the same creative energy that gave life to Keith Haring, Jean-Michel Basquiat, the Talking Heads, Blondie, and other New York icons. In a time when the future of the city is threatened by hyper-gentrification, Clayton, whose work has documented the creative DIY underbelly of the Lower East Side, has become an icon of an increasingly vanishing New York. Now in the tradition of Harvey Picar's American Splendor, 18 artists pay tribute to him in the graphic novel Anthology. The first biography of this iconic artist intertwined with the rich history of the Lower East Side over the last 30 years. The graphic novel will be published in April 2020. In the Percolated Press.
Great month.
And today we are honored to have Clayton Patterson himself, the author of artist Jesse Lambert.
Seanne.
Seanne Catedral, and I'm a school teacher, so I always get the names wrong. Sorry. All right. So here we go. We're going to begin. Thank you guys for coming. First question, Julian. You initiated this project. Can you tell us a little bit about the background?
You ready?
Yeah. So basically,
Julian, we got one more.
In summer.
Oh,
Summer.
sorry.
Oh, yeah.
I thought we said summer. Sorry.
Julian.
Okay.
Summer McClinton.
I was like mumbling over my words. I had a coffee cup there somewhere.
Oh, that's your coffee cup here. Alright, this guy needs coffee.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, so Clayton and I, we know each other probably like 15 years or something so we're both photographers, and he was working on an anthology on the Jewish people's history of the Lower East Side, and we met back then, but really 5 years ago I published this graphic novel here on the 1971 gang truce Ghetto Rubber, and Clayton also documented the Lower East Side gangs, and we really connected through this. And the more you come to know Clayton, you realize that he was really at the intersection of a lot of amazing things, and we'll talk about it a little bit here, but just to name a few things. I mean, he's the founder of the New York Tattoo Society. Tattoos were illegal in New York for a long, long time. He was the only guy with a camera at CBGB's. He was at the riots. I mean, he was at Oprah talking about the riots. There were so many things, and especially since we're here at Hudson Yards area, gentrification is like, New York is becoming the playground for the super rich, but playground is really the last OG of the Lower East Side. And so we thought about doing something. I'm a big fan of American Splendor, and for those of you who watched the movie, I mean, this brilliant intersection of having like film segments with illustrated parts was something that really, I thought was very inspirational in this context, because also Clayton is a photographer, so we actually having, as the cement between the episodes, a photo comic, a fumetti, where basically we also introduce Clayton to it, which I think works very nicely. I also want to point out we have Eddie Portnoy in the back, who wrote the preface.
And
just to give you a little bit flavor, we'll just show a little bit, I'll just go here, some slides from it. So interesting enough, the cover was made by Fabrice Sapolsky, who's the co-creator of Spider-Man Noir, for those of you who are comic geeks. This is a photo comic, which really starts with, the story is an journalist is coming to interview Clayton, and the journalist is played by Seanne. We see her coming to Clayton, and so she interviews him in every story about his life, be it his childhood, here illustrated by Qbert school alum Dov Smiley. We have the school years by Neverfend Natania Nuno Business. We have here for the Brazilians, we have Roberto Castro, a Brazilian artist who worked on this chapter about the Calgary Stampede. Jesse, this is your chapter. Maybe you want to just say what your chapter is about for a second.
My chapter is about, I think, teaching public school in rural Alberta, and then deciding to go back to grad school at Nova Scotia School of Art, and then visiting New York City and having that experience capture the imagination.
Beautifully illustrated chapter by Jesse here, and we'll talk a bit more. This is Sean's work. Welcome to New York, the arrival in New York City. 2 pages from Sean's work. That's Ray, it's your chapter here on the art scene. We have here also displayed the Clayton caps, but one of the many things is that actually Clayton also reinvented the baseball cap. He was the first to actually create non-baseball baseball cap with full motifs, and for you to know that actually these caps will be all reissued and soon be available again. He documented drag queen scene in New York City. That's Megan Dolan. The Tattoo Society. Actually, this art actually reminds us of what's Harvey Peter's Crumb. Yeah, Robert Crumb in the style of Robert Crumb. And Summer's chapter here. Summer, you.
This is the chapter about the Tompkins Square riots.
Yeah. And it's a cool thing also, she integrates some of Clayton's photography in the art world. All right, so
quick question, let's get this kicked off.
Yeah.
Clayton, why did you decide to do all this? You're a young man.
Yeah, right.
What happened?
Well, actually, it's interesting because by documenting, you cross over a lot of things. I recognize people here from Frank the Snake's Gym, of course, and Eddie Portnoy worked on the Jewish book, and other people. I see World War III is here. So a lot of different parts of documenting Lower East Side sort of integrates all kinds of level together. So I've always been interested in things more on the outside than the inside. There's a movie called Captured, which I think if you go to the Know Art website, capital NO!ART, you can watch it for free.
we also have DVDs for purchase here today, so we can also do this.
That's $10 you need to buy
Shutting
things
it up.
today. But the Lower East Side has been very inspiring to me. And I think one of my greatest blessings was, I think I'm kind of the last generation of what New York used to be. So I've been fortunate enough to have documented so much was here. I do this thing called the Acra Awards, which is the idea is to try to recreate sort of like the past of the community. Because like I was talking to somebody today about, you know, if you go to Paris, you can find like Daumier's studio and Van Gogh was there and Picasso. New York, all that's being wiped out, so there's almost no memory. There's no landmarks left of anything. So all we really have are the memories and stuff. So this illustrated novel is really important to me. And one of the greatest blessings of the illustrated novel, really, and this is no joke, is Julian. Because Julian really does things, he gets things done, he's really like on point. And so finding somebody like Julian has been one of my greatest blessings. And he's actually done 6 illustrated novels now, which is incredible. So he's really kind of an on-the-move guy. So Julian was really kind of my big plus. And then Shane here, Shannon. How do you pronounce it?
Sean.
Yeah. It's Seanne, but it's Sean. Okay, Sean. But then she's a major help too. So, and all these people adding up and doing the, and it's like, you know, I'm getting into my 70s, so an illustrated novel by one artist could take 10 years. So we thought we'd have like 18 and do it in shorter time period. So we're hoping to get that done, and like I say, it's It's really a pleasure to be here and to work with these people. And to have a novel on my life is really kind of incredible. And to be associated with the Lower East Side and all that entails. So that's been a great blessing.
That's awesome. For the artist, what motivated you guys to be a part of this project? We'll start with you down the line.
So Seanne.
I just think it was an opportunity I couldn't pass up. I mean, to draw, my city that I love and a time that I wish I was a part of, through all the alternative music scenes and everything. It was just an opportunity, yeah. I couldn't pass it up.
That's cool.
It was really cool.
I did it because Julian kept calling me.
Yeah, Julian's on it.
He is. He's very persistent. Summer.
Yeah, largely Julian, and then also I love stories that aren't being told. I think it's really radical to talk about people that aren't in what we consider mainstream and already acceptable to talk about, and that's my thing, and I'm super into the concept.
Awesome.
When Julian asked me, I was just sort of starting out doing comics, so it seemed like a really good way to start doing something that was kind of bite-sized, like just 5 pages was a lot less daunting than, like the same idea of like one artist doing a whole graphic novel versus just doing art. So that was exciting, and then also I like that the part of the story that I was working on was kind of related to like art school and experience I had going to art school. So it was relatable. It was relatable to me. And the old New York too. Like the subway.
So I just want to add one thing. I mean, it's also quite nice that this is like super grassroots. I mean, really, when we, Clayton and I, we met like once a month. I interviewed him, and we were just trying to figure out how to tell this. And when we came up with the idea to divide it up in like small, bearable chapters of like 3-4 pages for artists, I really just like reached out to friends. I mean, it was really just like, what, I love this idea, and basically everybody was. Well, there's some people who were not reliable, but in general, everybody was like, yeah, let's do it. And some people I had to call many times, like, hey, they said let's do it. But really, the idea is that it's, Clayton also represents the old do-it-yourself spirit of New York, which is harder to do in a very expensive city. And really, this was like a do-it-yourself project. I mean, initially we were talking about like doing a Kickstarter, but we were fortunate enough that we got Permuted Press on board. They loved the idea, and we have Jacob over there who immediately was like excited about it. So it really is like something that was totally grassroots, working with everybody. In some cases we had artists like Summer. She worked with Harvey Piker, very experienced artist. For Seanne, it's the first time. Actually, Seanne, we met when she purchased a copy of Get a Brother at a festival, and we chatted a little bit, and she said, oh, I want to be an artist. So, and I think you have the most pages in the book. So, so it's like nice that we had like a whole mixture of people. And then Clayton was interviewed by a Brazilian film team, and then one of the filmmakers came back to Brazil and said, hey, I have this artist. Do you have an extra chapter for us? And like, we have so many more stories, so we could add to it. So it really was totally grassroots, and it's pretty amazing that it still took 3 years, but that we basically from the initial idea to like getting it together.
But it's still, 3 years. It went like that.
They
said it was done.
Well, for you guys, not for me. No, but it really, it really is pretty amazing that we could like pull this together and get a publisher. I'm super excited that's coming out in April. The New York Post today had, called it one of the must-see. So it's nice. So I really think that this is.
And has that New York Press Village Voice type of feel to it. That's what I love about the art. It's so eclectic, and it just has this unique New York sense to it. All you need is like.
Actually, you bring up a very good point that the communal aspect of like illustrated novels, like let's say World War III, or most of the productions that are in here, one way or another communal. And this is also a community. Because now, we're also talking about kind of like stars on TV or the networks, and it's really kind of like 10 people now, the Kardashians or whoever, they kind of represent all layers of outsiders or unknowns or whatever, but each group used to have their own, Page Six had their own, and they have New York Press and the Village, and almost all of those things are gone. So other than this as a form of communication and community, almost none of these kind of things exist anymore. A friend of mine did a a movie on the loss of media in America. And Trump's right about it is fake news, because there's like 6 companies that own it all. And there used to be 69 major ones, like, you know, Chicago Tribune, like now it's just down to just a few. So the only sort of outside experiences and outside parts and pieces is through things like these kind of community projects. And it really in the end is community. And it's, that's one of the real blessings of something like this. I mean, really in terms of communication, because it's all going digitally, it's all going mainstream, it's all going down to like just a few companies.
And even like independent stuff, like whenever you do things online, you're basically giving away your rights to what you're creating. You know?
Well, that's the other thing, exactly. And so keeping these kind of communities alive is like really, really important.
It is. You guys growing up, what influenced you, like graphic novel-wise or comic-wise or animation, whatever it was? What influenced you to want to do comic books? And I'll start from down the line.
I've read a lot of the Marvel stuff, X-Men, Daredevil, stuff like that, but also somehow happened on ElfQuest, and that really got my imagination going. Those are, I think, the major ones that,
Awesome.
got me into it.
And Summer?
I read a lot of Garfield and Calvin
Yeah, it
Hobbes
was the best.
when I was a kid. Had a very suburban comic experience. And then I think I got into comics because I really like to think in sequential narrative. I think it is a great way to tell a story. It's super engaging. I love how like words and image play against each other. It's just it's an awesome immersive form.
Awesome. Clayton?
I'll get into my pet peeve. One of my pet peeves is this. American art, you know, you grow up, it's really like for a boy growing up in America, the period that I grew up in, it was really like Crumb and Zap Comics, and that's really what's in your bones. So if you're Italian and you grow up and you're in Rome, you grow up with Michelangelo, all of that. So once you get to so really your bones are like Big Daddy Roth, that's what's really in your spirit and who you are. And then you go to art school, then you find these Europeans like Picasso and stuff like that have no connection to you at all. And I'm just hoping that, and it seems to be happening in this period of time, where all of a sudden people are looking back and realizing that Crumb and the comics and all of that is really what influenced our aesthetics, us growing up. That's really what's in our bones. And so I think it's taken a long time before America sort of recognizes its true culture and where it comes from. And I think comic books are really a major part of that. Illustrated novels, comic books like that. Much more. You know, I mean, most people haven't spent an hour in front of a Picasso in their whole life. I don't care how many PhDs they got, you know what I mean? Whereas this other shit, you spent years going over, you know, I mean, it's in every pore of your body. Forget that Picasso stuff.
I was just like a very introverted kid growing up, and I just drew right off of like the comic books. A lot of Spider-Man, Batman, DC girl. And then Neil Gaiman changed my life with the Sandman series, and then Mike Mignola with Hellboy. There was a lot going on, but I just drew what I saw.